Good morning. Welcome to Ministry Monday. This is Carlton Coon. What do you do when the anointing is gone? Someone asked me that recently. Well, it's an interesting thing that we apply to our ministry and to the work that we do for God. This idea of the anointing, which is a holdover from the Old Testament application for priests, for prophets, and also for kings. But when you think about anointing, the anointing of King David was a singular experience. There was a time when the oil was on his head. There was a time when the oil was on Aaron's head, flowed down his beard, and dripped to his garments. So when you talk about the anointing in that sense, it's something that's felt, it's something that is experienced, it's something that is dated, and the king could say, well, this was the particular time when I was anointed. And so that experience becomes something that is part of a memory. But the truth of the matter is one's forehead is not always wet with oil. One is not always feeling the same vivaciousness of the fresh experience of knowing that there is this specific thing. There's not always the freshness of that anointing. We would look at King David and we'd say, boy, he was really anointed when he fought against Goliath, was really anointed when he made the wise decisions regarding battling the Philistines, or his wisdom in dealing with not destroying King Saul. But was David any less anointed when Ziklag was burned? Was David any less anointed whenever he was going through some of the deepest, darkest hours and Saul was chasing him in order to destroy him? I would suggest to you that an anointing from God is not something that is felt. You may be going through the deepest, darkest hours of depression. Sorrow may be resident in your life at this particular moment. But listen to me. If God has anointed you with a calling, as he has put his hand upon your life, don't despair. It's not a feeling. It is simply an anointing to a place, an anointing to a role. And it's not the warm fuzzies. It's not emotion. I would suggest that Elijah was no less anointed when he is fleeing from Jezebel than when he is praying down fire from heaven that would consume the sacrifice. As I was thinking about it this day, I was reminded of what John wrote in one of his last little epistles. He said, but the anointing which you have received of him abides in you. You need not that any man teach you. But as the same anointing teaches you all things, and is truth, and is no lie, and even as it hath taught you, you shall abide in him. He has set that against the idea that there would be those things that attempt to convince you that your anointing is no longer there. Well, could I encourage you today? Don't despair. Don't feel like that you just don't have it anymore. It'll come back. The feeling comes and the feeling goes. But if God's called you, he's anointed you, and trust him, and it'll be okay. Have a great week.